What's up, everybody? Welcome back, and what a night of boxing that we just witnessed. Holy crap. I say it once, and I say it again. Leave it to the judges to screw up a perfectly good fight. Nelson Vasquez, a judge out of Puerto Rico who's been at it since 1987. He's been in some of the most high-profile fights, and he's had some of the everyday run-of-the-mill fights, the undercards, the prospects, the up-and-comers, and then he has fights like this, and he just drops the ball. It's so evident that he's definitely been at it for a while. I just said 1987, so he's been at it for quite a while. And this is the score that he gave. I don't know what fight he was watching. I don't know why this happened. I mean, I hate to even get to the point of controversy or conspiracies to where you start saying that this judge was bought, that this judge sold out, that he was paid off by Al Heyman or PBC. But that's exactly what you're seeing on Twitter and on social media. That's exactly what you're seeing right now. And scores like that continue to happen on and on again. I mean, just a week ago, you guys had me complaining about a score on the DAZN card with Suleiman Urbina's card. On and on again. I mean, it just continues to happen. And it muddies the waters for what was a perfectly great fight. It was a great fight, not a good fight. It was a great fight between these two fighters. We get into the first round where the feeling out process begins, and Castano ended up establishing his dominance as far as the first round went. The second round, Charlo was unsure as to the style that he was going to provide for this fight. He ends up pushing forward and nearly takes Castano out. The third round was no exception. Charlo ends up taking control of that third round, and the second round was the telltale, right? Because it looked like Charlo was headed for another knockout near the mid rounds of the fight. The power is there, and then the lion went dormant. By the fourth round, Castano began establishing his attack, and it started because of the last 10-second exchange that they had, as Charlo's back is against the ropes and Castano is pressuring forward. The last 10 seconds of the third round, as it's coming to a close, the momentum shifted. By the fourth round, Castano establishes his game plan and continues to dominate the fight round after round after round by way of output, by landing. Connectivity rate was on Castano's side. The combinations were there. The flow of the fight was there. And Charlo just looked as if he was just on the defensive. As the rounds continue to go on, prior and leading to the championship rounds, I couldn't help but notice myself that Charlo's expressions, his facial expressions, are so calm, so cool, so collected, as he's in the middle of a war. He's in the middle of a fight in which a fighter is trying to take him out. And he's so calm, so cool, so collected. It's almost like he was detached from what was actually happening. Like he didn't actually see or notice or realize what was taking place. And it was something special to realize. If you guys didn't catch that, watch the fight again. He's so calm. He's not worried. He's not gasping for air. He's fighting normal. He's in his own groove. He's in his own world. He's off in his own zone. Yet The crowd from the 4th round on is reacting to every single combination that Castano lands. Every time Charlo missed, every time Charlo landed a good punch, every time Castano landed a good punch, more so than every time Castano landed a good punch. The crowd was so into the fight, worried because the majority of the crowd was there for Charlo. Charlo's a Houston native. This fight took place in San Antonio. The crowd was there for him, the majority of the crowd. I mean, let's call it 70-30. Let's call it 80-20. Hell, if we go 90-10, I'll have to show proof that it was that bad of a difference. But it's not that far-fetched. But 80-20, safe to say that 80-20, even 70-30 was there for Charlo over Castano. And the crowd was so into it. They were on their feet, at the edge of their seats. A nail-biter of a fight that we had tonight. It lived up to the hype. It lived up to the moment. And the importance behind this fight was that we were finally going to crown our first ever undisputed champion, dating back to when the 4-belt era kicked off in the early 2000s. And we end up with nothing. Thanks to Nelson Vasquez out of Puerto Rico, a very experienced, seasoned, veteran judge of the sport. Which scares me to know that he's affecting people's livelihoods in this manner. A 117-111 score that he gave was absolutely despicable. He was in another wavelength in comparison to his partners tonight, the other two judges. It is what it is. 2 weeks ago, we talked about this with Jermell's brother, as Jermell fought Montiel Macias. The scorecards read one type of result, and we talked about this in previous episodes, where the scorecards, if you're one of those people that reads the scorecards and jumps on your social media because you see Charlo outpoints Montiel, boom, decision win. And then you go like, this is a bum fighter, this is it. But you have to watch the fight and watch the scores as the fight's being scored. Why is it being scored that way? He outpointed his opponent, even though he was taking damage. It was that hard of a fight for him. He hit a new level. Whereas even the Zone and the bigger channels are starting to talk about, did Jermell Charlo's stock take a hit because of his performance? He had an amazing performance. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. This clout chasing that everybody does, all these channels do, it's crazy to me. But they get hits. They get thousands of views, thousands of clicks. Jermell Charlo did his job. He actually grew as a fighter, in my opinion, because of the challenges that Montiel presented to him. He may have stepped into that ring thinking that that was going to be an easy fight for him and that he was going to take that opponent out. And when he realized that he couldn't and that the opponent wasn't willing to go out, wasn't willing to call it a day, and was actually coming forward and inflicting damage on him, he hit a new level. He had to tough that fight out, regardless of how the scores look on paper. It wasn't that clean of a victory for Jermell. And that's why I appreciated his performance that much more and his talent that much more, because of how he etched it out. Jermell tonight was in a similar firefight, except he was detached from what everybody else was witnessing. Castano ran away with this fight. He was in trouble in the second. He was in trouble in the third. Until he capitalized. Derrick James designed a beautiful plan, and this is what caught my eye. Derrick James designed a plan which caught me off guard. I don't know for the casual fan if they even noticed this, but for the people that study the sport, I know you guys caught on to this. We were expecting Jermell to show up like he has in the past few fights. And these past few fights, I'm referring to the last 2 to 3 years of his career. He likes to bang. He likes to exchange power. He likes to inflict damage. He wants to hurt his opponents and he wants to get them out early. The Jermell that we saw in round 2 is the Jermell that we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years. However, the positive for Jermell is the versatility that he displayed. He showed a different side of himself. He showed that he could box. We all know that he's a good boxer, but he relied on it tonight. But he abandoned the jab once again. And this is something that I mentioned on the preview episode, where the two brothers differ is that Jermell does not abandon the jab. He lives by the jab. He's loyal to the jab. Jermell is more of an inside, aggressive style pressure fighter who lives by the hooks and the overhands and the power punches. So when he had to apply boxing, it was great. It was refreshing to see that someone who's about to become an undisputed champion in a division and the man to be in a specific division has the versatility and the adaptability to switch styles when he needs to. He did it. Jermell adapted. Jermell applied a different style tonight. He took the role of the counterpuncher and decided to play more of the boxer than the power hitter. Castano fought his fight. Castano knew that the other team is going to make adjustments, just like he knew that every other person that he's faced make adjustments for his style. And he approached it the same way, a little bit more hesitant because he tasted Charlo's power early. And Charlo wanted him to taste the power early. Castano tasted it early, dealt with it early, and realized that it's something that he could handle on the early onslaught. By the end of the third round, about 10 seconds are left, and Castano lands a huge hit to the chin of Charlo, staggers him, which gets a huge reaction from the commentators and the crowd, and Charlo himself. The round ends, he walks to the corner, and the fourth round begins. From those closing moments into that third round, I still gave that third round to Jermell because Jermell continued to apply the pressure and to apply the damage that he began in round 2. It looked like it was going to be a typical Jermell Charlo fight where he was going to eliminate the opponent by way of knockout. Castano's a different beast. Castano fought up to the moment. He survived the onslaught and began to dissect Jermell's style. Jermell went dormant. By the fourth round, Castano established his dominance, his style, his pressure, and it was tiring Jermell out. The constant backpedaling, the constant pressure being applied by Castano was second to none. And it continued in the fifth. They had a great exchange between the two fighters in the fifth, but Castano dominated the round. The sixth, same story. He's connecting, and he's connecting big. Charlo is trying to fight back, but nowhere to be found. Yet his expression, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier, is that of, it's an everyday thing. He was not worried. He's not gasping for air. He doesn't look concerned. He doesn't look hurt. He doesn't display any other emotion other than being engaged. Yet the crowd is feeling something else. The corner is feeling the urgency. And he was just sticking to his own game. Castano continued to win these rounds. As we enter the championship rounds, Jermell has a conversation with Derek James in the corner where Derek James tells him, "You're down on the cards." And Jermell's expression, go back and watch this. The expression on his face was that of awe. He was in awe that his trainer was telling him that they were down in the fight, that they were losing the fight. That leads you to believe, and it leads you to an understanding that Jermell's in a zone in there like most fighters, but Jermell was seeing one thing while everybody else, including the fans, the commentators, the court, everybody else is seeing what's happening except Jermell. He was detached, and it caught him off guard. And by the start of the 10th, he comes out with fury and power and vengeance, looking to hurt Castano, and he does. He's successful. The Lion awoke in the 10th round, and he brought it to Castano. He hurt him, and he hurt him several times, and he hurt him really bad. Nonetheless, he let Castano survive. Castano got on the bicycle, he circled the ring around, he bought time, he did what he had to do to survive and see that round through. He did it. That's a veteran move, even though he has a younger, smaller record, lesser record than Jermell. Professionally, that was a veteran move for a boxer to have applied that, to have realized where he was at the moment, to realize how much was left in the round, not having much of an idea as to the actual count or the actual time left in the round, but realizing that he had to move because he was in trouble and he's going to get dropped. Jermell was coming for his head. In the 11th round, Jermell continued the onslaught, but would let Castano off the hook. Why? Jermell's style is aggressive. It's come at you, phone booth style, knockout, drag out, get out of here. You don't belong in the ring with me. That's Jermell's style. He came at Castano, and he came at him hard. And when Castano was at his worst, Jermell would let him off the hook. Bring the 11th to an end, and we move on to the championship round, the 12th round. Castano up on the cards. The 12th round, as much action, as much countering, as many hits as Castano landed, Jermell was a step ahead of him. His adrenaline, his drive, his ego, his experience carried him through that 12th round to put on a good enough performance to have earned that 12th round. How did I score it? I'm going to post this up. You guys know that I run the podcast. Everything is based off of Instagram. From Instagram, you can link me on. You can link onto the podcast platforms. If you guys listen to me on a podcast platform, check out the Instagram page. I base everything off of there, and I spiderweb from there. I'm going to post the card as I scored it. And you guys could see how I had it round by round. I had Jermell winning the 10th, 11th, and 12th. I had him winning the 2nd and the 3rd. And every other round, he lost. The fight ended, in my eyes, in a 115-113 decision win for Castano, where we should have had an undisputed champion for the first time since the 4-belt era kicked off in the 154-pound division. That champion should have been Brian Castano of Argentina. I'm going to post a scorecard as I called it as the fight was taking place. So check out that page, check out that post. Charlo impressed me in the sense that he showed his versatility. He showed that he could pose a different style of threat and adapt to the opponent, but he abandons the plan. I called this on the preview episode as I've noticed it in previous fights of his. And he abandoned the plan. If he's going to box, if he's going to take the role of the counter puncher, he has to jab. He has to jab. When you're a pressure fighter and you jab, you generate your attacks from the jab. The jab is your measuring point. The jab dictates your spacing and also dictates your time, your timing. That gap, that reactionary gap between when you throw it and when the opponent is responding. That's your gauge. When Jermell abandons it, that's a half-ass plan. That's a half-ass executed plan. He half-asses his boxing, and Castano was winning those rounds because of it. Because he was able to close in on the gap. And Jermell would have to resort to a short hook or an uppercut, which by the time that he tried to land that, most of the time he was getting tied up by Castano because he has the longer reach. He was not only the taller fighter, but he was a fighter with the longer reach. Castano knew that, so he knew how to close those gaps in. Something that his twin brother does not do. His twin brother does not abandon his jab. He generates everything. His entire game plan is based around his jab. He's very good at it, and he throws that thing out like a piston. Jermell is a different beast. He's a power hitter, a power puncher, an aggressive, emotional fighter that gets in your face and looks to take you out by any means necessary. And when he's asked to box, he will do it, but it's not natural for him. So eventually he abandons it, and that's how he gets in trouble. This is what happened tonight. Castano should be the undisputed champion at 154-pound division. And it didn't happen. Thanks to the judge. Nelson Vasquez from Puerto Rico. We ended up exactly how we started, except we got a great fight out of it, which got soiled, sullied, muddied by one judge. 117-111 ended up giving this to Charlo. Even if he saw it for Charlo and he saw it 115-113, which would have been more realistic, even a 116-114 would have been very realistic. to go along with Tim Cheatham's 114-114 draw and Steve Weisfeld's 114-113 in the favor of Castano. Steve Weisfeld called it tight and called it for the right man. Castano won this fight. It may not be popular. It may not be a popular opinion that I'm sharing here. Castano won this fight. Brian Castano should have been crowned the undisputed champ of the 154-pound division. He belongs in the history books for Argentina as one of their best boxers, just by having accomplished this feat. This is not a gift. He earned it. He did it. We witnessed it. Castano should have won this fight. He won this fight. But the judges, one judge, had something to say about that. And Castano ends up in a draw. Now he has 2 draws on his record. One to Erislandy Lara and another to Jermell Charlo. They each kept their titles. Castano keeps his WBO title. Jermell keeps his 3 titles, IBF, WBA, WBO. And now that everybody's calling for a rematch, during the post-fight interview, Jermell says he's going to take some time off and basically whatever his team decides, Al Heyman. Leave it up to Al Heyman. Yes, this rematch should happen. All roads to undisputed glory in this division, as long as these 2 fighters stay in this division, have to go through each of them. From here on out, you're looking at any fight that Brian Castano is in, that people, until these 2 rematch, and we get an actual good result, and it looks like knockout's going to be the way to do it because we can't depend on these judges. This was a gift to Charlo. As much as I like the Charlo twins, and I'm a big fan of theirs, Charlo lost tonight. I got criticized for the last episode that I did on Jermell against Montiel for not being negative about Jermell. But I saw a lot of positives about Jermell's performance. Now we deal with Jermell, and I see a lot of positives about Jermell. I like what he did today. I like the fact that they designed a plan to take the role of the counterpuncher to figure out what Castano could provide and prove and possess as far as strength and boxing style, what he was going to bring to the table, and adapt from there. The problem is that they got caught. They got caught off guard because Brian Castano did not apply the typical pressure that he does. Yes, he was coming forward. Yes, he was pressuring, but it's not the typical style that he provides to his previous opponents. The output was not at the same level. He was a lot more hesitant, but a lot more measured, a lot more conservative. And that's how he was finding success. The success that Castano had tonight, not only can you attribute it to his power, but you attribute it to his timing. Castano's timing was on point tonight. His instincts, the reactionary gap that Castano allowed himself to have between him and Charlo, that reactionary gap that he created between him and his opponent, gave him time, gave his instincts time to react at the proper time. He didn't overshoot his shots. And his timing is the reason why his power was so effective today. And his punches and his style. This wasn't the traditional Castano. And this wasn't the traditional Jermell that we're used to seeing. That's how this fight became so interesting. But in the grand scheme of things, Castano outperformed, outworked, outpunched, outlanded Jermell. And he deserves to be the undisputed champion in this division. This was a gift to Jermell that Nelson Vasquez gave him. I'm not going to get into the conspiracies of saying this is a robbery, this is that, because this is what you're seeing all across online right now and through social media. It is what it is. I'm not going to shred this man who's had a long-standing storied past with the sport of boxing as a judge. That's for him to answer. He has to lay his head on his pillow. That's for him to answer. He's an older man. He needs to answer for these type of cards. Has he lost it? Has he lost his touch? Does he not know what he's seeing anymore? He was just active a few weeks ago. That's, each person has to answer for their actions. I'm not going to point the finger at anybody, and neither should you. We see what we see as fans. We're not the ones in the ring. These men are fighting for their lives, for their livelihoods, for their families. And they become big profile fights because these fighters end up performing exceptionally well at a level above the norm from what the majority of other boxers are doing. 1. 2, they align themselves with really good teams. They have the luxury or the privilege to be aligned with very good management teams, and their careers end up flourishing. These are not gifts. Maybe to some they are, but the fact that they're performing like this is the highest level. This fight signifies the highest, this is the pinnacle of the sport as it relates to any specific division, to try to unify and become the undisputed champ in any given division. And these two fighters lived up to that hype, to the moment, to the importance of what this fight presented and what this fight meant. That's why I won't knock on Jermell or Brian Castano. They did their jobs. They performed beautifully. I don't know what a rematch would look like. It's easy to say Jermell will knock him out because the Jermell that presented himself in round 10 and round 11 is the Jermell that we're accustomed to seeing, that eliminated Jason Rosario and Erickson Lubin, Golta, Harrison in the rematch. You name it. That's the Charlo that we're used to seeing. So that doesn't mean that he was off his game. It just means that Castano posed that big of a threat to him. To Brian Castano, he's consistent, he's reliable, he performs. He shows up, he does his job, and he does it well. He adapts. He takes a good punch. He's got a great chin. He stays very composed, very professional, and continues pushing forward because he knows the task at hand and what he needs to do, and doesn't mess around. All in all, we end up with no undisputed champion tonight. So that's that. Let's see how this unfolds here in the coming days. As far as the co-main event, Romero fights Yigit, who was a previous 140-pound fighter. He ended up coming in at 140 pounds, missing weight. This fight was at 135 pounds. Rolly Romero currently has the WBA interim version of the 135-pound title. And Anthony Yiggett, who has had great fights in the past, the most notable against Ivan Baranchik, who was a champ at 140. Anthony Yiggett has a defeat to him. He's a good, versatile, elusive type fighter that was not outmatched, but was just off his game this whole week. He misses weight. It almost looked like he was wearing skater shoes in there, like he was wearing Vans or something similar, some low-top shoes rather than boxing shoes. If you go back and watch the fight, it looks like he was just done skating, or I don't know, but he had some low-top, like this is the shoes that he showed up to the arena with, and he wore them into the ring. Those aren't your traditional boxing boots or boxing shoes. He had tennis shoes in there. He was off his game, misses weight, his gear's off, he was thrown off, and to top it all off, he had the most awkward fighter in front of him, across the ring from him. Rolly Romero is someone who I've watched many hours on YouTube. I've seen many videos on him, sparring videos, where he poses a challenge to the opponents, or he's dropping opponents, or he's giving a hard time to opponents that have bigger names or are very notable in the 135 and 130 pound divisions. He trains out of the Mayweather gym in Las Vegas. I've seen a couple of his previous fights. I haven't followed his entire career, but I've seen a couple of his previous fights, and he's definitely awkward. He's definitely a different style fighter. And what I saw from him today, as far as the fight goes, I can't stand him. I did not like it. I don't like the style. He's a bully. He got away with a lot. The referee should have disqualified him. That knockout victory that he got today was by way of an elbow. He was landing punches and elbows. He cut Yiggett because of an elbow. It wasn't even a head clash. It's a brawl. There's nothing traditional, nothing boxing related to him. It's a street fight with him. And it's crazy that they don't call his attention to it. He exposed himself today. He didn't show himself in the best light. And the crowd booed him at the end. Anthony Yiggett, his stock rose today because of what he had to deal with, even though he got the knockout loss. What he had to deal with in that ring was something that you don't want to see any other fighter go through. He got hit in the back of the head. He had lumps on top of his head, on the side of his head, above his ear. And then he gets cut above his cheekbone, left side, because of an elbow, because of headbutts, elbows, forearms. Rolly Romero, I didn't like his style. I'm not a fan of his style. I could care less if I get to see him again. I didn't like it. I didn't like this performance. And that had a lot to do with him. That has a lot to do with the person. How the person carries themselves. He's outspoken. He's flashy. He likes attention. He likes to say nasty things on the mic whenever somebody interviews him. He likes to call people out, demean people, and then he carries himself and he fights just like his personality. That's his personality. He fights just like he talks. So now he called out Gervonta Davis, and great. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he has a great career. I'm not looking forward to watching any of his future fights. If this is a persona or an act that he's putting on, then I'm the sucker because I'm missing it. I'm not seeing it. This is coming across very genuine and as if this is how he carries himself, how he conducts himself, both on interviews, on talks, on podcasts, and in the ring. So that's that for the co-main event. He retains his title. Anthony Yiggett takes a loss, a knockout loss. I'm sure he's going to bounce back. He's a good journeyman-style fighter who has a lot of promise out of Sweden. He took a defeat to Baranchik. Now he takes this ugly beating to Rolly Romero. Hopefully he bounces back and gets on his horse, gets some good wins behind himself, gathers himself, and maybe he'll get to avenge this loss with a better referee. That referee that was in there, a Puerto Rican referee that was in there, is an all-time great referee. He even took a point from Rolly Romero, but then he continued warning him because he didn't want to be the deciding factor. He didn't want to take that. Rolly Romero was pushing him to make that decision and eliminate him so he could be the hated guy in the ring, so he could be the talk of the night. And the referee knew it, and he hesitated on doing the right thing for the sake of public opinion. But he knew that Rolly Romero should have been eliminated earlier. This thing went 7 rounds with Rolly Romero doing that. Headbutting, wrestling, gripping, clinching, elbowing, forearms. I mean, whatever. He was following his punches. His crosses and hooks, inside hooks, were followed by elbows and forearms. He was shoving his opponent down and claiming that his opponent was knocked down. He was lunging forward and pushing his opponent to the canvas. I'm not a fan. If I ever have Rolly Romero on this show and I end up interviewing him, I hope he listens to this episode. I'm not a fan. If this is an act, then so be it. But this performance made me not want to watch him again. I'm nobody. This is a small platform. But we're going to call it like it is. And it sucks that you represent yourself in that fashion. With that, I leave you guys. I don't know what else to say about the Jermell Charlo fight against Brian Castano. We've gone in depth, we've gone in circles, we've gone all around to try to dissect this every which way. It was a great fight. It lived up to the moment. The fight for the undisputed title in this division, for the throne, for the person to become the man in this division, happened tonight. And we don't have a winner. We don't have a winner, a recognized winner. But the people know what they saw. People know who won this fight. Public opinion rules. Those that are blind, those that are biased, are going to play a different card, a different tune. Those that are blind to the sport and to what they saw, they're going to call it one way. But this is a 90-10 or 95-5% of people. 95% of the people, maybe even higher, 98% of the people know who won this fight. Brian Castano won this fight. He should be the undisputed champ in this division. Regardless of how you feel about Charlo. I love the Charlo twins. I'm a big fan of theirs. But even if it would have been a draw, which it wasn't, but even if it would have been a draw and the judges' scorecards were closer than this horrific 117-111 score that Nelson Vasquez gave, I would have been okay with it. But I saw Castano win, and it seems like pretty much everybody except the people on Charlo's team who feel otherwise, everybody else seems to agree that Brian Castano won this fight. Nonetheless, a lot of positives for Jermell, the way that Jermell performed, the way that Jermell started coming back. It was a little too late in my opinion, but he did come back. The man's a lion, the man's a beast, the man's a monster in there. And when he puts his foot down and he's ready to just buckle down and exchange with his opponents, he is second to none. And I like that about Jermell. Brian Castano showed that he is a great fighter on the verge of becoming an elite fighter for Argentina. Great fighter. When he crosses that notch, that next level when he levels up, he'll be an elite world recognized fighter. Right now, he's a great fighter who posed a great threat to an amazing, aggressive style power puncher in Jermell. So, I leave you all with that. It's a long recap. It was a long night. I'm tired. I'm gassed. I'm sure you guys are too. Let's close it out. I will talk to you guys on the next episode. I have several episodes lined up here that should be headed your way, but I ended up moving them and rearranging them for the sake of putting this recap up earlier than normal. And then I'll get the rest of the episodes here in the coming days. Thank you guys for all the love. Thank you guys for all the support. The platform continues to grow, and I owe it all to you guys. I owe it all to you guys. This would not be possible without you guys. And ideally, I want to get this platform to be the go-to spot when it comes to boxing and MMA. I'm not looking to clout chase. I'm not looking to give you the breaking news, but if I have it, I'll post it up, or I'll get on here and put a quick episode up. But this is not about monetizing. This is not about anything else other than a passion of mine, which are these two sports, and more specifically boxing, more so than MMA. It's been a lifelong partner of mine, the sport of boxing, and this is a passion project for me. This podcast is a passion project for me, and I want to do my part to do right by you guys instead of giving you guys these attention-grabbing headlines and spewing hate and trying to divide people by politics or beliefs or personal opinions. We got to stay true to the sport. We got to stay true to the fighters, the fan base. I'm a fan myself, and I want to do right by you guys. And I don't want to sully this platform. I want to make sure that it stays true to its values, that it has a good foundation, a good base, and that we do right by you, the fans. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for the continuous support, for the comments, for the emails. It's starting to grow, and I'm starting to see it. And it's scary that it may get to a point where it gets out of hand and I won't be able to respond to every single one of the comments. But as we stand today, I'm able to handle it. I'm able to get back to you guys in fairly quick fashion, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I thank you guys. And I'll talk to you all soon in the next few days here in the coming episodes. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Have a good night.